Hello, everybody. As you can see, we've got Carrie's stunt double over here. Welcome to the Thursday night show, the train wreck as usual. We've got Ken on with us tonight, also known as our boss. You can say that sarcastically. Carrie is in chat. She took a bit of a tumble on the ankle she's having issues with, so poor girl is laid up on the couch. So we want to do two things. One, we want to send Carrie some really good, high energetic vibes, and then also Andrea has her first PET scan tomorrow at 11 a.m. to really kind of get a first look at how the first 3 rounds of chemo have been going. So we want to just, after we're done tonight, you guys just shoot her as much energy and love as you can. She's doing really great. She's still not having any side effects other than the occasional kind of being sleepy. She has navigated this like a rock star. So we just want to give her good love and energy for her PET scan tomorrow. And I think that's all the housekeeping issues we had today, Mr. DaCosta.
Good evening to you all. As it states, I am Carrie Hopper's stunt double.
Yep. Too bad you couldn't take the ball forward today.
She was about to come down the stairs, and as the director yelled, "Cut," I was in the bathroom at the time, so I didn't get there fast enough to stand in for her to come down the stairs. So I'm probably fired. I'm out of work right now, but it's great to be here. So thank you for welcoming me in. This will be a little bit different here tonight, but I can promise you that it will be just as insane as it normally is. So.
Oh, hold on. We have Mary Beth bouncing up and down. She has news.
We have breaking news here.
Breaking news. Put it in the chat there, hot stuff, so we can see what's going on.
Yeah, we'll have to screen you, Mary Beth, but you can tell us what your news is.
Might be about her kitty, because I know she's been dealing with a sick kitty.
News?
Carrie is
Hi, George.
Hey, George. Carrie was making her a spray, like a Reiki infused spray to help her kitty cat. I know she's in the process of that. And then we hadn't heard any updates, so we'll see what she comes up with. But yeah, tonight we're going to basically, as Ken said, cross streams between metaphysical and investigating. And so we tend to go, all right, that's great news. Good stuff.
Hey, Beth, he's better off than I am. I can't grow my fur back. It's gone.
I'm losing a lot. I think it's because I'm getting older. I need to figure out how to get more back on my head as well. But yeah,
so he has some first world problems there.
Yeah, hashtag first world problems, right? Given the week we've had, it's it's nice to have a fun, chill, low-key evening. I spent a lot of the week running around Maine getting tags and driver's licenses and all those things done and prepping for this cold that we've got coming in. So we're excited for a nice low-key evening. So where do you want to go with this there, Mr. DaCosta?
Well, we were going to talk tonight originally, and this is right in Carrie's wheelhouse. So, sending her a lot of love. Ice, elevate, okay?
Right.
Take care of yourself and enjoy this nonsense tonight. This is right in her wheelhouse as someone with abilities who does investigate.
Yep.
So we had talked about a week ago of talking about the two kind of intersecting.
Right.
How it works, because a lot of psychic mediums work with paranormal teams.
They do.
And there, I think, is sort of a criteria for it. There's a process to it, and it's about sharing, and it's about give and take. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit tonight from people who may be in that position as investigators or psychics or, kind of wondering how all that works. So we'll give it a shot tonight.
I like it. I like it too. Well, and it's coming on the heels of, I went with Corey and Jen to investigate a local place in Rumford this past weekend, last Friday. And it was interesting. I think I think the timing of this conversation is interesting because obviously we've covered mediumship with investigating. But for somebody like me who's not, do I have mediumistic abilities? Yes, but that's not what I rely on when I go into a space. And so I think the timing of this is interesting because I've started figuring out some things, I think. I'm learning more about how energy plays into an investigation when you're sensitive. So I think I had the worst paranormal hangover of my life last Saturday. Like I'd gone and tied one on with a bottle of vodka. I've been sober for 9 years, but it'll be interesting to kind of see where this conversation goes because I think for me, I'm going to learn a lot because I'm new in investigating. Bernie is about to. The whining is loading, so it's coming. It's up. It's coming in hot.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Well, I guess it all comes down to using mediums
Mhm.
and what it is that you're looking for from each other, right?
Yeah.
Because this is absolutely an effort, a collaborative. I think you start with me with the first thing I want to find out is if the medium is someone I trust
Yeah.
and someone who is going to work hand in glove with us and who is going to give me information that we can use. Now,
Right.
first of all, Cody and Satori, hi, you guys are watching tonight? Oh, okay.
Kids.
How you doing?
I should have sent them the link. They could pop in here and play with us and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's Bernie." Right
Yeah,
on, everybody.
I think when you using psychics and they come in, you're looking first and foremost for information that you can't ordinarily get from books, and whether you can find names and dates,
Right.
but I'm always looking for emotional content. I
Yeah.
want to know what spirits there may be thinking. I want to know something about them I can't read in books. What's very important to remember is that psychics, like anyone else, aren't always right.
Right.
They're not always right. So
Right.
anything they say, you can't take it to the bank. And there also has to be a trust and putting egos aside, because a lot of times if I bring in a psychic, I may say, I'm not telling you where we're going.
Right.
And
Which I think is smart, actually.
yeah, and most welcome that. I
Yeah.
don't want to know anything about the place. So we just get in the car and we go there, and everything is a blank canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I'm trying to catch you. I'm doing it for your benefit as well as mine.
Yes. Yeah.
So what you give me, what psychics are looking for after that is corroboration.
Yep.
Now we can go back in the books if they have no idea where they're going and they tell me in 1849 this happened. Now I can go look at it clean and not have any doubts that they looked this up, whatever the case may be there. So that's kind of how it all works in terms of, pulling on the same end of the rope, even though you're coming from a different
Angles. Yeah.
different perspective. Yeah.
But I think you can kind of validate each other. I mean, I know, for example, like I knew where we were going on Friday because it's a place they've investigated for a lot of years, but I've never researched the place. Now, Corey had given me some information about, one of the things he's come across in that location, but I didn't look up anything. As far as I didn't know what the place used to be. I didn't know, anything about deaths. I didn't know anything about the place other than that it's local here. But I prefer that way too, because for me, I want to go into a space not knowing anything, like you said, because number one, it's going to help me energetically. My energy is going to tell me everything I need to know about the space, or, first impressions, things like that. And like you said, it's to our benefit, because if I walk in there knowing exactly what I'm walking into, then what am I really even there for? There's no point in me being there other than to take in, the investigation. And especially for a person who's not, like, I don't see spirits physically like a lot of people do. Like, I'll get a lot of visuals of them sometimes, but for me, it's all what's going on in my body energetically. It tells me a lot, whether it's, like one of the problems, when I first walked in the space, it was like my heart had, like my chest, like rock on my chest, and come to find out people, had a couple widow makers, you had some heart attacks, you've had, or I'll walk into a space and I'll be like, there's something about that corner. I may not see anything, but I know something's going on up there. So it's just, for me, it's almost kind of ferreting out where is a good place to look or pay attention to. But I do think there's a lot of benefit to not knowing anything, because you don't already have an opinion of what you're walking into or what you think you should get. You're just regurgitating what information is kind of coming into you.
Mm-hmm.
However you get that information, whether it's sent as a psychic or like an energy person like me, everybody gets their information differently. But you're right, you have to be able to trust each other. Bernie, he's going for the blueberry donut holes. You can't eat. Those are bad for dogs. Come here.
I can't say as I blame him. Huh?
I can't either. I left my Cadbury mini eggs on top of the counter, so he can't get to those because I'll throw him out the window if he goes for those.
Yeah.
But
hey, Cody, Tori, I still have cherry pie and raspberry cobbler at my house.
On my way. I'll be there in 4 hours.
Yeah, they were nice enough to bring that over for dessert, so I've been gnawing on it today like a field mouse. You know, it's like you take little bites because it makes you feel better about yourself, and next thing you're gone, the damn thing is empty, and it's like
just.
So you might as well just, just
commit at that point. Put the bib on and shove it in your face.
Right.
Yeah.
In those terms, though, we don't have a psychic within our group, and we typically have not had a psychic within the group in the 17 or 18 years we've been together. And it's no reason other than we come from a perspective where it's all documentation, right?
Yeah.
Video, audio, environmental readings. That's what we do, But the psychics on occasion that I have invited in will tell me too much information clogs them up. And it's not even a question of I want to be legitimate.
Right.
I want to give a, unbiased, uninformed reading or impression of what's going on. A lot of them will tell me too much information just jams me up. And
I can see that. That makes sense.
In their head, they have to separate everything that's coming at them. I don't know how that works because I'm not that guy. Yum.
Right.
Yeah, it was good. But that's kind of the way it has been explained to me, again, by psychic mediums that I have faith in. Because I've gone the other way too. I've worked with a couple that's like, oh baby. But that's how it is. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and I think it makes for an interesting mix. I mean, I know for me, I'm obviously newer, and the only other investigation I've done was with you guys, and that was 2.5 years ago now, I think. And I think that was the first time I'd seen Cody and Satori do their thing, and so I was just shell shocked the rest of the night. I think I kept having to pick my jaw off the floor the rest of the night. But to be able to go into a space like this place we were on Friday, lights off. I've never seen anything like it. And Corey and I had a very interesting discussion today because Corey and Jen have a ton of experience. So I'm very lucky to be able to also learn from them. And I wondered, when you're in a space like that, because I've started noticing, I'm just gonna say it. We talked about this a little bit before the show, but I started noticing, and it started for me at the farmhouse, where it feels energetically like, to me, when I walk into a space, sometimes it's almost like they vanish into the walls and they're standing there like holding their breath. I remember the first time I started noticing that. And it happened at this place on Friday when I first walked in. It's almost like they withdraw when I walk into a space. And I don't know if it's because I walk in with a lot of energy that maybe it's like overwhelming to them. And yes, Cody, you guys both know exactly what place it is. This is GRCC up here in Rumford. But then Corey made a good point because they've investigated it a gazillion times. They're like, but it's the most active night we've had. So it's on the other end of the spectrum. Like maybe at first I'm new to them. They've not met me before. I'm with people that they know well, but it's brand new energy that they're not used to. And I know I put a lot of energy out, but then does that also help amplify what's going on in this space? Because I'm basically like a gas pump, like, here, take it,
right.
And I've noticed when we were in St. Augustine at the Lincolnville Cultural Center, I nailed at that place too. But I think when you have other people who are like, we're all tapped in, you, Julie, Dawn, we're all tapped in. Are we all amplifying each other's energy in a space like that? So does somebody like me get more information or more feelings based on the people around me? So I think even as a sensitive, you're still playing off each other energetically.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I don't know. It's an interesting, I definitely have to investigate more, which will make Carrie very happy. I'm waiting for her devil horns to pop up in chat here. Because it's not a space I've really spent a lot of time in. But I know as an energetic sensitive, I have a lot to learn.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to say something that might unnerve some people, but it's been demonstrated to me that spirits can get into your head and know what you're thinking. And that has been demonstrated to me on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
Where I was literally thinking about something and the message came through that I know what you're thinking about.
And that was a spirit wasn't that a spirit from the Shanley? And you were investigating in New England, and she even tapped out. Ken thinking of me.
Yeah. So I think what it comes down to, we talk about intention, your intention. So with that ability to sort of get into your head, to put it in plain language, I think that there is probably, and this is me speculating, but there's a recognition of who you are, what you're capable of, and the idea that they've been discovered, to some degree. It's like someone here is in tune with our frequency.
Yeah.
Someone here is attuned to our frequency.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out who this new face is and what does she want, because we talk about it often, when we're doing EVP work, when we're doing investigating, and we're trying to build that bridge and communicate with the other side. All the questions that are being asked are, man, are you a woman? Did you die here? Did you and this? Did you live here? Comes down to two things. Who are you and what do you want?
Right.
At the end of the day, that's it. You ask all these questions to essentially build up to two main points that you're trying to figure out: who you are and why you're here. What's your intention?
Or to quote Monty Python, what is your name?
Yeah.
What is your quest? It's true.
But I think when you walk in with that kind of ability, they're in your head too, or they're capable of doing that. And like I said, it's been demonstrated to me, to my astonishment, and made me like freak out a little bit. But I think that's why some mediums may go into a location and pick up immediately that everybody's on the perimeter now.
Right.
Like they're having a grand old time, but you walk in and everybody's like, oh.
Yeah.
You're different.
That's what it felt. That's what it feels like. And I kind of hate that because I don't, I learned when I started working at the farm last summer, one of the first things I learned very quickly was that they told Cody and Satori that they already know your intentions. Like to your point, they're already in your head. They know exactly who you are. They know exactly why you're coming, but they want to hear, the farm spirits want to hear you speak your intention before you walk on the property, just to make sure everything sort of jives, I guess. But I think for me in a space like that, it's, I want to kind of explore how to navigate that, because I certainly don't want them to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to make them, I don't think it's nerves or anything like that, but, I have to kind of navigate being new in the investigative side of things, how to, maybe I need to set my intention better. I mean, I always set my intention. I ground before I go in, and I always go in basically in a space with the same intention. Like I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to be kind. I'm just here to experience this location. And I think I'm learning that there's something about my energy that seems to sort of, I don't know if it's like freak them out at first, but then it seems to kind of be okay after a bit.
Sure.
So
I mean, it's not always love at first sight, right?
No.
It makes a nice story, but usually 99% of the time, it takes people to get to know each other and to see each other in different situations. When all is going great, that's fine. but you get to see the true character of someone when nobody's looking, right?
Agreed.
Like, what are they really about in vulnerable situations? So,
Hmm.
even though, it takes a little time, again, to kind of feel out a person.
Yeah.
Like, what? In other words, they're asking the same question of you, right? Who are
Right.
you and what do you want?
Yeah. And it's wild because I think, for those of us who aren't like Carrie, who can clearly see what's going on, visually, whether they're getting it in their third eye or they're seeing them physically there, like it's pretty instant of what they're able to ascertain, like because they're able to visually see it. Whereas for somebody like me, I'm just navigating what my body tells me. Like, okay, do we have a heart attack here? Like, I have that unfortunate ability of, if I walk into a space and somebody's been stabbed, I'm going to feel that. Somebody's been shot, I'm going to feel that. Somebody's been hanged, I'm going to feel that too. It's my least favorite of all of them. But I've also learned when that happens, they're trying to tell me something.
Mm.
But that doesn't always mean, because I know for some people that freaks them out because it's like, oh God, they're going to hurt me. It's like, no, 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 no. They're trying to tell you something. They're trying to show you something. They want, maybe it's a matter of they want you to understand because maybe they don't understand. That happened to me at OSR, where the spirit had a lobotomy, didn't understand it, so kept stabbing me in the eye. And I could see him after a bit because it went on for several hours. And I finally had to say, I'm so sorry this happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically what happened. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to back off a little bit because I can't stay here and have you keep poking me in the eye every 5 to 10 minutes. Carrie can verify that happened last year. But I think it's I'm learning about them as much as they're learning about me. So it's like, how do I navigate it better for them? Right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
always try to lead with them in mind first. Like, I'm just there as a bystander and an observer. I just want to learn, but I also have to bear in mind not every location is the same, not every spirit's the same. So it's interesting being new on the investigative side because I still have a lot to learn about how to navigate their space.
Right.
What's best for them? How can I best respect the situation that I'm in without knowing anything about the space? So I always kind of walk in like, I'm just here to learn. That's always my big one. I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I'm here to be respectful. Those are always my three big ones. But I guess I have to just kind of keep trying out
Mm-hmm.
these different locations. Thank God I'm in New England because I've got plenty of people to investigate with now. But it's been an interesting, I've had a lot of time to think about it, all week long, trying to figure out, do I need to do something better? Do I need to change something up? But then I figure I'm like, okay, I just have to keep doing it so I can grow and learn more and then, learn how to handle it better.
Well, you have to, learn as much about yourself as you do about them.
So
One of
true.
the things that I kind of, I don't like, um, I never go into a place and ask anybody, did you die here?
Right.
Because you got to remember that all of these stories, or a majority of them, don't have a happy ending. And it has nothing to do with, murders and suicides and all the rest of that. It could just be very tragically leaving your family at a young age,
Sure.
or leaving very young children behind, dying before your time, having to suffer through an illness. So you don't necessarily want them to have to relive that, because there may be some regret or embarrassment or a feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think they're healed, which is always good news, and in most cases they have reunited, they're with their families, and all of that's wonderful.
Right.
But I think the questioning, if they want to come forward with it, is fine, but I don't want to have to beat it out of anybody. Did you die here? I mean, that's sort of like, well, we're not off to a great start because I'm
Right.
already bringing up the absolute worst time in your life and in your family's life and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I kind of get a little antsy when someone asks that. I don't give anybody hell for it because, it's kind of a standard question because you're trying to attach them somehow to the property. Like,
Right.
who were you? But a legitimate medium or even a Cody and Satori can give you that emotional content where they'll come forward.
Yeah.
Like, you share with me, this is not an interrogation. If you want to share with me, I'll share with you too some of the things, how I think about things. But I think you
Yeah.
have to approach it like you would anybody else. You wouldn't go to someone's house and,
Right.
hey, anybody dying here? It's
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah, we're off to a great start,
Yeah. Or like you're dealing with, somebody, who's had like an abusive relationship. It's like, okay, tell me about the worst time you got punched in the face or whatever. Like you don't
Yeah,
do that. You know what I mean?
right.
Like Carrie said, soul trauma is important and needs delicate touch. I think that's 100% true.
Sure.
Um,
I mean, it
and
was like going to the Lizzie Borden house for the very first time. And I've talked about this before, we consciously decided to go in there and not relitigate a murder trial or
yeah,
try to get a confession.
right,
Find out something about her and or her family that
right,
they were involved in separate and beyond what it's known for, being
right.
notorious for. So it was about her love of animals, her work with the church, and that's sort of that's the icebreaker
Hmm.
because 10,000 people have gone in that house. Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it?
Right.
And again, I mean, it's true. You're asking somebody to live the most traumatic time of their life. I don't know how much you're going to get.
True.
That's a rocky start.
I think too, you're also setting the energetic tone for your investigation, I would imagine, when you go that route early. I mean, if then that can either completely shut them down, um, piss them off. Um, and I think it's important to remember they were human. So talk to them like they're human. I
Right.
mean, you said you wouldn't walk in and say some of these things to a living human. Why would you do it with the dead? You know? Um, it's interesting. It's a whole new learning curve I'm on right now. Yeah, I think Mary Beth is completely right. Yeah,
Mhm.
100% agree. So I don't think I've ever asked that question on any investigation I've been on. Yeah. And
Did
I
you
think,
die here? Yeah. Right.
right, right. Did you kill so and so? Um, but it's again, I think too. You make a good point about energetics. They recognize like energy because I do wonder everything. Do we look like humans to them? Do we look like energy to them? Are
Hmm.
they drawn to us because our energy vibrationally can align better, or I don't know. It's interesting. That'd be like where you have to ask Cody and Satori, like, can you find out if they, you know what I mean? Because it's, I think they want to talk about that kind of stuff, and the more we can learn about how they prefer to interact with us, whether it's from an energetic perspective or conversation.
Yeah, but and
Or it's
and you also have to remember if it's an extended period of time where that's hours later or maybe a return visit also doesn't give you the green light to say, well, now that we're good friends, can you tell me how terrible it was when you died and left your 4-year-old daughter? Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that doesn't give you, you know, an okay or a hall pass to start. There are ways to build to that rather than a punch in the face. It's like, are you with your family? Is everyone all right? Are you in any kind of distress? Is there
yeah,
something we can do to help? And if
yeah,
you're sincere about it, then maybe you can have that conversation
yeah,
and learn a
yeah,
little bit more. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to run out and put it on the internet? Are you going to go out screaming in the streets? Yay, we talked to a ghost. That is something for you and whoever you're with to, share with the spirit realm and yourself and see if there's a way that both of you can help each other achieve what it is you're going to. I want to
yeah,
document this presence, and you want somebody to memorialize or recognize you because none of us want to be forgotten, right? So
Right.
it's important to let people know that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
to make sure you have a voice on our side
Right.
still.
And just because you leave a location doesn't mean they're not still keeping an eye on you after you walk out of that space, because now you're, I mean, in my opinion, now you're energetically connected, right? You know, not as like an attachment, but like, you've made that energetic
Right.
connection, right? Like if I'm here, you're in Rhode Island, and then all of a sudden you decide to move to China, we're still energetically connected. You know what I mean? So I always try to think
Sure.
like when I leave a space, I'm going to continue to be respectful of the location I was just in, and the spirits that I picked up or we discussed or whatever, because that's just the right thing to do. Joseph had this. Jen and I were talking about, I wonder if spirits already know ahead of time what questions you're going to ask them. I think we've all found that to be sometimes true. Like you get the answer before you've even gotten the question out.
I think it takes a little effort on your part if it's a fleeting thought, maybe not so much, but if it's something that's building up in your head and you're spending a little time on it
Mm-hmm.
and you're kind of putting that thought out into the ether as like a
Yeah.
physical thing, then sure, why not? It's not, I wouldn't say it's spur of the moment type questions, but something that's sort of gnawing at you that you're
Mm-hmm.
focused on and concentrating. I think it's easier to kind of pick up on that.
Yeah. Well, and considering, I mean, thoughts are things. I mean, thoughts are energy, just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Carrie's right on that as well. It's just, I don't know, it's fascinating. Like, I still have a lot to learn, which is good, but my newness is very apparent when I investigate. So I do a lot of not saying anything. I just kind of sit quietly. Like I have a hard time even calling out what I'm getting.
Right.
Uh, but I think to your other point, like when you're with a group that you trust, you have to be able to sort of step into that, because if we, as metaphysical people, mediums, whatever you are, I've always looked at it. We have a duty to them. It's not about me, it's about them. So it's like I have to step into the space better where I'm comfortable calling out what I'm kind of picking up.
Right.
Uh, and like you said, may not always be right either. And that's okay. You have to be okay with being wrong. Like you may be misinterpreting the information or misinterpreting the energy, or, it's like assuming if you get scratched, there's a demon coming after you. No, they may have tried to tap you on the shoulder, and then maybe they tried to push your shoulder. And then you know what I mean? Like it's not jumping to conclusions all the time, I think.
I think one of the hardest parts too, and this is just human nature, is when you have success, you certainly want everybody to know about it, right? We get this great piece of evidence, we want to tell everybody.
Sure.
When a psychic medium nails something down, of course, they want to tell somebody. We all have that need to, be recognized a little bit, some more than others. Some people make a living off that. But I think that's where you find the balance, and that comes from who you are, your own character. If you
Yeah.
want to just self promote yourself and I did this and I did that, then nobody out there is going to stop you. But I hope you're right all the time after that, because you putting expectations on yourself that
Mm-hmm.
other people are going to have. Or you can just say, why am I doing this? If I'm doing this for the benefit of the spirits in the location and possibly the people who live there or work there, and just trying to get answers for them, then a lot of times you have to just be happy with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that should be hopefully fulfilling enough to you,
Yeah.
because there are people out there you're working with who are going to know what you've done and who you are. And the best part about it is they're going to open doors for you, and vice versa.
Yeah.
As a
100%
spirit
agree.
medium, you may say, hey, I have a group that's awesome, do you mind if they come in? And on the other hand, it's like, we have someone who can commune with spirits, and she is extremely trustworthy and accurate, and you know, do you mind if we bring her in? Because that door is going to swing both ways
Yeah.
if you leave egos out of it and do
Mhm.
it for the right reasons.
100% agree. Would it be appropriate to talk about Anne a little bit, Richardson?
Sure. Whatever you're feeling comfortable doing, you can go right ahead and do that.
I'll say, and there's a reason I'm bringing that up, because I think
But
the end result of where,
before you do, in case
yeah,
we don't get back to this, I wanted to talk. I
mm,
talked a little bit about criteria. This is how we do it.
yeah,
When working with the medium goes in first.
yeah,
We follow her or him, record, take notes, make note of where activity may be, where someone might be. And then after that, they're welcome to stay with us. But now they have to give us our turn. And if
yeah,
we want them to ask something, we will ask them to do it. So this way, everybody gets their space. Because I've been on the other hand of it, where a medium goes in, oh, there's someone in that chair, and immediately everybody rushes the chair to. So the best way to do it is complete walkthrough of the house, property, building, wherever you are. Take your notes, take note of hot spots,
hmm,
and then go and do your thing with a focus on those places that may be a little bit more active. So I just want to
yeah.
let everybody know before we forgot. This is kind of how we work with them. But you go right ahead with the Anne story.
Well, and it's a very long, convoluted story, as you know well, but I think
That's why I wanted to squeeze that little thing in.
I'm going to try and keep it as short as humanly possible, because I haven't really talked about this one publicly, but I do think it's interesting, the tie-in from the metaphysical end of it. So we had an experience, and I'll save a lot of the backstory, but Carrie picked up on a gentleman from the farm. Um, and he was waiting for me at my house a couple Halloweens ago when I got back, because we were trying to help him navigate some stuff he was upset about. So he's at my house, and I'm waiting when I get back to Florida. He was there more often than not, almost not quite a year. And then when I mentioned it to the owner at the time, he kept giving me the wrong name. He kept saying, first name, different last name. Couldn't find it in the lineage anywhere. Couldn't figure it out. Anyway, so I go to the farm for my first 3 weeks. In the first couple of days, where she's able to validate that this particular spirit has been giving me the wrong name on purpose, because apparently there was a little bit of a crush um, on me at the time. But his wife, Ann Richardson. So this is Noah Arnold and Ann Richardson from Round Top Road. Ann basically told Cody and Satori that she wanted me the hell out of that house. And I freaked out, because in having never really spent that, I'd never stayed on the property before. Now I'm going to be there 3 weeks. And in the first 3 days, I'm finding out this woman doesn't want me on the property. And I know what happened to Miss Carol, and I've looked in those eyes before, and I'm like, oh, shit, instant tears, because I'm like, I've tried so hard. I've set the right intention. I've been nothing but respectful. I've just, but this energy, this entity, she was real, real big mad that I was there. So, and every time I went to the house, it happened in July, and then it was in September. When I went back, she was screaming in my face, get the hell out of my house. She didn't want me there. And then apparently I looked a lot like her. So then fast forward to Ocean State last year. It went from that, and it turned into an attachment with this woman. Now, I didn't figure this shit out for Christmas time, I think, is when I figured it out. With the help of Miss Carolyn specifically, because I called to tell Andrew what I thought was going on, and Miss Carolyn sat up and said, "You brought a friend back from the farm." But I bring this up, giving you the very short, condensed version. She attached to me because energetically, we had a common bond that I was unaware of. So when I figured this out, I called the Heinzens, I called my dear friend Michelle Roos, because I knew I was out of my element, because all the things that I normally did to clear my own energy were no longer working. So in talking with Michelle, we decided, this is not, I didn't talk to Michelle because I needed an exorcism, clearly. She's just a person I trust to the nth degree with advice. And she's like, I feel like she is an energy who was married to an asshole. And there's something about your energy that I think you need to talk to her. Like, I don't think doing anything to kind of like force her energy off of you to break that connection is a good idea. I recommend you start talking to her if you're comfortable with it. And so I started taking Ann on. I'd be like, all right, Ann, I'm going for a walk. Okay, Ann, I'm meditating today. Like, I just started including her in my day-to-day life while also having the conversation of, we can be connected. You don't have to be attached. But I think from the metaphysical end, we had both been through abusive marriages. My first marriage was ridiculously abusive. We don't really know. We know some about Ann's marriage to Noah. We never found out if he was abusive. No idea on that. So I'm not going to go there. But she was looking for someone to be a voice for her. And I feel like, because I am an energy person, tapping into that energy and trying to meditate and inviting her to come along, just being very cognizant of her in my own living space. I put a boundary around the condo that her husband could not come in unless she said he could come in. He never came back in that condo. But I worked with her for about 4 months until she finally let go. Complete, like, the attachment was basically gone. But the metaphysical connection, because I was doing a lot of, burning white candles and, burning incense and meditating and just trying to be very cognizant of my own energy, which seemed to also maybe help her energy a little bit. So it almost felt like, I wasn't her mouthpiece, but she needed me to be the person to sort of help her kind of navigate this a little bit, I think. So I think, to your point, respecting a spirit and not walking in and being like, well, what the hell happened to you? Like, I don't know. But she was going to, we sort of figured it out together, between help with, Carrie helped a lot with this. You guys helped a lot with this. I mean, I had, I called you the night that I got the information. You thought, I was in the tent at the farm. It's like 11:30 at night. I've just had this bomb dropped in my lap. And I'm like, oh, you guys
are not ready. I was not ready for that. So I got to tell you something. I thought you were going to tell me the couch floated off the door. Like.
I'm like, this woman hates my guts. I was scared, and I didn't really know how to handle it, because that was not what I was expecting. I was very upset when, Cody and Satori were nice enough to kind of bring Noah through. We would say that jokingly that Noah kind of got slapped with a spoon on the other side for his bad behavior. But I think it's a testament to, you make connections with certain spirits. There's a reason for that, but you can't assume what that connection is, because, again, I owed it to her to figure it out a little bit on her terms, if that makes sense, but I needed help to do it. And so that's right. She told me to cover my legs. Although
they're not wrong.
I had jeans on, though. I had jeans on. I think it was Satori. She had a really cute dress on. Her legs were showing. But again, we had to work together as a group to let her say the things that she needed to say, which she was not happy. I was in that house. And I don't know how many people have been part of a interstellar love triangle that they're completely unaware of. But there was a reason she had me kind of, I don't know how to explain it still. Like, it's the wildest thing that's ever happened. And I'm giving you guys the most condensed version I could possibly give you. But that experience changed my life, because what I learned was, one, I think we figured out that spirits maintained a lot of their humanity. I mean, you had jealousy, you had anger, you had, all these different kind of things. And it was directed at me. So, but for me, it was like, okay, well, how do I handle it? It was up to me to decide. Now, I could have freaked out and, called and had her energetically ripped off of me. But what is that going to be good for her? No, that wasn't good for her. So it was like, was I willing to work with her in the energetic ways that I know how to kind of bring us together so that I could sort of be not a voice for her, because I never really obviously didn't talk to her. She's come through a couple times, but there was something about my energy I guess she needed. I guess it's kind of what I'm getting at. So maybe that is also an important part of where metaphysical and investigating can cross. because I wasn't expecting any of that. But it is by far the singular most impactful experience I've ever had in this field. And it went on for about a year and a half, almost 2 years that went on.
Right. Well, and you know, I was going to ask, and I think you just gave me the answer. Do you regret at all now that, you know, this seemed to have passed being as deferential to her as you were, rather than taking a more aggressive posture and just, you know, leave me the hell alone? Because in being deferential and trying to reach out, you put yourself through a lot
Mm-hmm.
having to deal with it, because it's like, oh no, it's fine. It's okay to talk to me. And for the longest time, there was nothing great being said. It was
No,
kind of adversarial in a
she
lot
was
of ways.
big mad.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know what the line is that, you know, just enough is enough. Like, I will listen to you. I'll be deferential to you. You know, I'll try to hear what you're saying. But you're putting me through a lot of shit here that I really don't need to. It's like,
Yeah,
and I'm the only one who's listening to you.
right.
And I'm really the only one that can probably resolve your problem here. So let's take a breath and calm down. So, you
Yeah,
know,
because
that has got to be, yeah, that's got to be hard when you're trying to do the right thing, but you're not getting the right result at the time.
well, and that's, I mean, when I first left, because I started noticing it last summer, because again, I was up there, like 18, almost 3 weeks I was there on the property living there. And once we figured this out, she started keeping two fingers in my back. Like I could feel it, like the buzzy, weird. You can't mistake it. It feels like nothing else. And I thought, well, when I leave the property and I get back to Florida, it'll be done. Oh no, 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 no. It went on and on
Mm.
until we basically were able to sort of disconnect that energy, because it was very, at first it was very much like, yeah, bitch, I want you to know I'm standing right behind you, kind of. It didn't feel great. I remember telling you that, like, I don't like
Yeah.
this. I don't know what to do here. And I would just tell her, I need you to back off of it. But it was interesting as things kind of morphed and changed. Like my week at the farm in March, you know, we'd already made a lot of progress. We were pretty much done with it at that point, but it started turning into more of like a, hey, I just want you to know I'm here. Like the energy that she was giving me felt different.
Right.
Do I think it was worth it? Yes. Do I think it was something I was supposed to go through? Yes. Was I told to keep my mouth shut about it? Yes. So this is the first time I'm sort of kind of, and eventually I'll get into the whole full big thing, but this isn't the time for that. But I think it does align with, you have a choice in how you handle these kinds of things. And I think because I was smart enough to know I was out of my element, and I could call any number of you brilliant people who I trust to the nth degree, and I know will help me navigate it in a way that's good for myself and for Anne. I wasn't worried about it. I wanted to do the right thing by her, because I knew she'd been through a lot. And basically, no, Anne Richardson is the reason the Arnold name came into the farm. She married Noah. Noah built the, you know,
Mhm.
so that she's a very important person in that house. That was in her family for a very long time. I mean, it was the Richardsons to begin with. And I think for me, it was a very big lesson in, you know, in energy, because apparently I look exactly like her. We don't know if there's some sort of familial connection down the line. I don't have any New England family that I'm aware of. And Carrie wants me to talk about the Noah story. But Carrie, I think we'll do that one night. We'll just do a whole show on that whole situation, because you need to be on that call, because you can explain that end of it better than I can.
John just found a younger model, right?
The younger, more freckly model. But I had a
Well,
choice to make there. And I think that's, you know, energetically, we always have a choice. And I made the decision that with specifically Michelle's help, because Michelle was able to pick up on a lot that I hadn't even told her about. And so she helped me understand, like, if you're comfortable with it, I think you can navigate this. You have to find a common ground, and your common ground is abusive husbands.
mhm.
And we don't know if Noah was like physically abusive or there was an affair. We don't know, but it wasn't good. We know that.
Yeah.
But
I
it took
think
her
that,
a while to come around to me too. I think it took her a while to figure out, like, I'm not an asshole. I'm not here to steal your man. I was happily
mm,
married to Justin. Like, I promise I don't want your man.
what am I going to do with him?
Right. He's been stalking me basically in my house for the last year. But it was a very important lesson on leading with energy, navigating the energy, and using the tools that I had learned to help us both.
Yeah.
Very long story for that.
Here's one of the things I always warn investigators, especially people who are new to it, be very careful of codependency. Because you may have someone, a client, if you will, that's going to tell you their story. And when you listen and extend a sympathetic ear and some understanding, you're doing all the right things, but sometimes you don't get the right result.
Right.
So a lot of times that client thinks nothing of calling you at 2 a.m.
Right.
If something happens or in the middle of the day, or so. This is what I mean by codependency. So you got to put your guardrails up and establish some boundaries. And we're talking about the metaphysical end. I'm not saying that you two and you are, there's a codependency there, but they certainly got to that point from the spirit realm. It's like they know you're going to pay attention to them. So more and more and more. We talk about it all the time. Again, is this word intention? You know, it's not the Ouija board. It's the people who are using it. You open doors. You're not sure who's going to come through. It doesn't necessarily mean it's like, hey, how are you? How you doing? You doing okay? I'm doing okay too. Okay, hey, maybe we'll see you sometime.
Right.
It's not always that. Sometimes these things are very prolonged and they go on a long time, because you have to be very careful not only about codependency, but a single entity's dependency, you know, on you. And that door swings both ways, because we all know the old lady who spent, you know, $200,000 on a psychic because she couldn't make a decision on her own. So she becomes dependent on that psychic. So this is a very, very fine line that you have to walk. And whether you're in the living or in the afterlife, those boundaries are very, very important. So this is why I say, you know, you were conciliatory, even at the expense of your own, you know, your own emotional well-being.
Yeah, I think it was, I think for at first scary, because of course I wasn't expecting to have to, oops, shit, sorry. I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting any of that, but let's just put it that way. And I think, fortunately, because of the friends that I have and the people in the different sides of this, they were constantly, you know, how are you doing? Let's check in on things. And I think I was comfortable with it because, one, it didn't take up a ton of my time. It didn't take her very long to figure out that there were boundaries put in place. Like, you can't keep poking me in the back. This, you know, I'm going to include you in some things, but it wasn't like taking over my life. But it was hard because you're not expecting it. You don't know what to do. This is a spirit that apparently had never made itself known, either of them, until I got to the farm. And I wanted to handle it with kid gloves, but I also knew, and everybody told me, like, to your point, like, you have to know when to cut it off. If it gets to the point where, like, you can't, now it's taking over your life, or it's taking over too much of your energy and everything else, then you're going to have to do something different. But I was lucky in the fact that she seemed to understand. Now, once I made the connection of where her head was at, and I changed, you know, with help, figured out how to sort of navigate it. It didn't take real long for it to start to shift. Now, it did take, about 4 months to get her to detach fully. Would I recommend anybody doing that? Probably not. I mean, even a nice attachment is exhausting. I mean, I think what was scary for a metaphysical person like myself, who is an energy person, it took me 4 months to figure out that I had an attachment. 4.
Well, this is, you know, with the farmhouse is only representative of a million other places out there.
Exactly.
When you come into, and it had been many, many, many moons before anyone had gone in there. before Corey and Jen with a welcome to go ahead and communicate.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last ones were us, a dozen years before they bought the place.
Right.
When you are in a location like that, regardless of what the method is that you're communicating, on the other side, it's like, fine, nice talking to you. I think I'm going to go to bed now.
Right.
And then you always run the risk. And this is, again, an intersection of, paranormal investigation and the metaphysical, where that person decides they're not quite done with you yet.
Yeah.
Like, I'm packing up my stuff. I'm going
Today.
to jump in the car and I'm going to head home right now. Listen,
Florida
if
sounds
I'm
like a great place
welcome,
to visit.
right. If I'm welcome to come back, then
Yeah.
we can pick it up where we left off. You're in a different situation because now you're rooted there. You don't get to go home for a 2-week period. That is home.
That is home. Yeah.
So you're a constant presence. This is why people who stay there for prolonged periods of time, I'm not going to say they're vulnerable, or maybe they are, but they're certainly available.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah, because
available.
there's nowhere.
Because
If you're
I
sleeping
just
there,
found
there's
out.
no. Yeah.
I just found out as a spirit, these people can hear me. I can talk to them. I can't get enough of this. I didn't think this was possible in my lifetime either. But look where we are now, where I can communicate and maybe let them know I'm here. So in the spirit realm, you said something interesting before about, and this is the question. It's one part of it is what happens to us when we're gone. The other part of it, do we retain our personality and character and memories? Do all these things come with us? So you have, I think, a little insight into the type of person that Anne probably was.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to speak badly about her.
Right.
But she seemed to be a paranormal Karen in many aspects. I know that sounds funny, but where everybody else is, all right, goodbye. She's like, and another thing, so she basically was, I want to speak to your manager right now.
Basically, I think what's, and I didn't think about this till just now. If I didn't have the connection to Cody Satori, Andrea, the farm, Carrie, who's instrumental in this, Michelle, Corey, Jen, you, I shudder to think what this could have turned into. Because if I'd stayed at the farm and we hadn't figured this out, it could have gotten ugly, because I would have just kept showing up and nobody was listening to her, that she didn't want this bitch on her property. And you know what I mean? Like if I didn't have the people around me to help me navigate it from all different avenues of this field, because listen, I'm the first one to tell you,
relationships.
Huh?
I didn't mean to talk over you. You just froze on camera for a minute. So I thought you were done, right?
Well, I was just saying, like, without all those people stepping in to help me with this, because I didn't go public with this. I mean, even if hadn't been told to keep my mouth shut, I would have had a hard time explaining this, because it's so unbelievable.
Right.
But I shudder to think, if I didn't have the perspective on the spirits at the farm, or anywhere for that matter, and I didn't have other friends who were much more experienced at this than me, where this could have ended up for me, Right. So would I do it again? No, I'd rather not. But I'm grateful for the knowledge of the other people in my life who are much more, like, experienced with this stuff. But then also for her to be able to navigate it and have it be a successful kind of turnout. But then, of course, things went south at the farm, and I've lost all connection to her, which on some levels is kind of devastating, because she kind of started keeping an eye on me at the house, and her touch, the poke in the back, turned into more of like a soft hand, like, you're okay, on nights I would freak out. So we worked through it together. But I definitely, if anybody goes through something like that, you need to rely on the people around you who know more than you do.
Well, I think there's a collective energy with having people around you, because I'm not trying to suggest she meant you harm per se.
So.
but you're alone, and when you're alone, you're vulnerable, and you don't have that collective energy of people behind you where you can turn to somebody and say, hey, this, I'm just feeling this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone can act as a mediator or intercede or take your mind off things or whatever and just say, let's go out for a walk.
Right.
When you don't have that and you're isolated and you're there by yourself, you're kind of vulnerable to those kind of things, which is
Yeah.
why when, using psychics on investigations, I would never want someone to go into a place alone anyway,
Right.
because we're going to document it for our own edification. We're going with you. We're taking notes, whether you like it or not. But
Right.
um, you don't want to put anybody in that position who claims that they have a pipeline to this.
Yeah.
Now, if one of our investigators, who's as psychic as my cell phone here, decides that they're going to go sit in a room somewhere, the chances are less that they're going to be under some type of psychic attack. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Sure.
But when you have someone who's sensitive and open to these type of things,
Mm.
and a spirit can understand that you have those abilities, because again, they kind of know what's going on in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're putting yourself in a tough spot.
Yeah.
So this is why people have to kind of look out for
Yeah.
you a little bit, because I don't know who's going to come a knocking,
Right.
and neither do you.
No, clearly, because you were the first call I made, and I wasn't freaking out, but I was like, how do I even explain what just happened? Like, I didn't even know. You thought I was going to say the chair flew across the room, and at the end, you're like, well, damn, I wasn't expecting that. And it was like,
No.
I thought when I left the farm that like that trip that we were done. No, 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 no. We weren't done. I mean,
Right.
but it also, I think, from a metaphysical perspective, it very much shaped how I walk into a space. Knowing what I went through, knowing what she had to go through a little bit, the respect level, and being conciliatory too, I think is important. But you also have to, like you said, you have to protect yourself. You have your people to take care of you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't as easy to go back to that house after that until we sort of navigated this a little bit better. Because I went back once after Christmas, and Christmas, it was right. I think I was up there in December, right before Christmas, and I figured it out 2 days before Christmas. I had an attachment. When you end up in Daytona and you don't remember driving there and you don't drink, there's a problem. But it taught me a lot, and it taught me I still have a lot more to learn. It taught me that I am very fortunate to be surrounded by people who have done this for so long that I can trust anything I get from them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got lucky in that experience, because I don't think she was trying to hurt me either. I think she needed somebody to understand. But it again, it was like, well, why me?
Probably not a very polished woman, if you know what I'm saying, who in life
Mm,
didn't know how to reason things
yeah,
very well. It was all like, I'm just going to kick your door in and I'll apologize later. So,
maybe.
I mean, you just think about the personality and the character and what you take away from this.
Yeah,
Someone who is obviously jealous for whatever reason. Maybe her husband gave her good reason to be. We don't know.
right.
Um, but has no problem infringing
Yeah.
herself. And this is why I use the word, Karen,
Hmm.
because that kind of reminds me of what the definition that we have today would be. No, I want to see the manager and I want your badge number. And it's
Right.
like, lady, let this go. It's not a big deal. Don't tell me it's not a so
Yeah.
um
It's it was interesting, to say the least. I learned a lot. And people will ask me, because I have the coordinates of the farm tattooed on my forearm, and I went and got tattooed last Halloween. People are like, oh, because you had a job there. I'm like, no, because that place literally fundamentally changed me as a person. It did. Um, it's it's an experience I'll never forget, and I I hope to be able to reconnect with them all someday. I mean, I know we can't really do that right now, but I
Sure.
think I was supposed to go through that because I had a lot to learn. I was like, oh, who takes their first job and goes sleeps at the Conjuring House for 3 weeks? This idiot, right? I say that, and I don't say that because I got, attacked or haunted. None of that. It's just a lot to take on when you're new in the field and this is your first job, and you just walk in there like, hi, I'm new and I'm ready to learn, and then you get basically bitch slapped with that situation and you don't know what to do with it. I think it helped me grow as a sensitive too, because I think that also makes me more aware of the energy in a space because I don't want to come across that again.
Right. For all the reasons, though, it's like I can see there's retribution because they were disrespectful and they came in here and I want retribution. It's just kind of like this is one of the weirdest reasons that anybody would like attach to somebody. It's like, stay away from my man.
I got called an interdimensional harlot for several months, as you can imagine. And
Right.
It was kind of a running joke at the house for a bit, but I didn't realize at the time. Because I think it's funny because I think we see her a little bit. We have a difference in perspective on her as a person. I think for me, it felt like no one listened to her because she never came through, I guess, apparently. But then was she married to an abusive man? And now 200 years later, he finds somebody that apparently looks exactly like her because that's what he told them is that I'm the spitting image of her. Now there's a living bitch in her house who is completely unaware that her dead husband has been basically stalking me. I had no idea. So was it like finally she gets a voice? Was it because she's been dealing with this for several hundred years? Had he done this to other living? I mean, we don't really know.
Right.
So it was like I had to sort of take the position of, okay, I get it. Let's try to figure this out. But 10 out of 10 don't recommend.
You don't want like a Gladys Kravitz over there.
No.
Apna. How many people even know what I just referred to out there?
Probably not many.
Show of hands, please.
Yeah, show of hands, please. But I think it'd be good to go back and reconnect. I think it was kind of like losing a friend to some degree because we had worked through that so much, and she very much did help me feel better in some really creepy moments at that house my last week there. But we worked really hard, and then just sort of have that ripped from us has been really, really difficult. That's been hard. So
hey, Brendan just showed up.
The man, the myth, the Brendan.
I'll have to catch up with the starter. Okay. We'll just sit here, Brendan, and hang out for a little while you go back.
I'll go make some more coffee.
Yeah, we'll be back at 10:08, folks. After Brendan catches up a little bit.
Well, thank you for letting me talk that out because I've been wanting to address that. But then when this came up, this conversation, it's like, well, I had to use a lot of metaphysical shit to navigate that.
Yeah, because the thing is, now you bring this particular case to me as an investigator who's going to document it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to want to talk a long time about this to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell me this whole story and not leave anything out. So I say to myself, okay, self, how am I going to investigate this and document it? Well, let's find out something about Anne. Let's find out something about her husband and so forth and so on. But I mean, then it comes down to a third party, me or whoever I put there, also trying to reach out to her and probably incorporating you into that.
Sure.
After a bit of time, we might say, hey, we don't seem to be getting an immediate gratification on this, which is fine. We may have to come back 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But we may have to incorporate you into this. It's like, okay, you start talking now.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to figure that out. But the tough part about it, if you have a psychic for a client, we're going full circle again because you're feeling things, okay, that I can't document.
Yeah.
So now there's another process involved with that. But best we can do is what we do. and probably at some point incorporate the psychic, or in this case, you, if we
Mhm.
had taken this on, into our process.
Right.
It's probably inevitable.
Yeah.
So similar to what we do with Cody and Satori, we always try this. Look, I'm going to put this out here. If we've been here 100 times, you know what a recorder is. You know what a phonograph record is? Same thing.
Same principle.
You try to put it on their level, and we're going to do all these things. Can I take your picture? Would you talk into this? Would you? And they'll say yes. Would you try? Yes. All right, go ahead. 1, 2, 3, go ahead. So you
Right.
wait a minute. You wait. Did you try to do it? Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. And then nothing shows up, right?
Right.
You
Right.
know? That's just the nature of what we do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, how do you scientifically prove that I've had 2 fingers in my back for, you know what I mean? Like, that's not something you can, you know, track or use a device. I don't know, but it's like I think that's where it's hard to be a sensitive sometimes too, because you're like, I'm telling you, this is happening to me.
yeah,
I'm not gonna make this shit up. I mean, I don't. I'm lucky that the people in my life know me well enough to know that this is something I'm gonna make up. I mean, I've kept it quiet for this long. But it was a very real thing, and it was a very, thank God for Cody and Story in that instance to be able to step in and use their method to help us sort of navigate that to some degree. But you're right. You can't. How do you document some of that? You really can't.
you don't unless it's the right place at the right time. And it's one of like not so much now, occasionally, but I used to get a lot of requests to join Rise Up. And one of the things on people's resumes is I'm a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And that did you like no good whatsoever. And it has
Right.
nothing to do with, I don't want to work with psychics. I don't want to,
Yeah.
I just didn't want to be put in that position where there's always a danger of over relying on the psychic.
Yep.
Just like we over rely on the SLS camera and the spirit box and the K2 and things that go beep beep and light up
Mm-hmm.
at the expense of our own experience, our own senses, our own observation. A psychic can be the same way.
Yeah.
And if they're good, it could even be worse because then you're not doing anything. You just follow them around and just like, okay, so what do you have for me and my family? Well, you got a spirit there, and you got an old sea captain there, and you got an angry woman in the basement. And I can't show you or document any of this, but our psychic is really good.
Right. There has to be a balance.
Well, I mean, number one, we're out of jobs. We don't need to be there.
You're right.
You know,
We had all the answers. We'd all need a new hobby.
right. But that doesn't work for us.
Mm-hmm.
It may work for somebody else who's got 5 psychics in their group.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Right.
But in terms of what we do what we do. We hit a stone wall. And then it's almost like the police calling a psychic in on a case where they hit a roadblock.
Right.
A cold case. It's like at this point, I will take what I can get because I know when they died. I know their names. I know their kids' names. I know their parents' names. I know everything about this place, but I want to know more about them.
Yeah.
Like why this happened.
Yeah.
And if it's none of my business, then let them just say, I'd rather not talk about it. Okay, case closed. We'll be on our way now.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
it's I think there's an interesting balance to strike, but I think, it's one of those things where, I mean, it always does go back to, I mean, like as a sensitive myself, I mean, if I go on and like investigating with Corey and Jenna with you guys, like I'm not there to take over and prove to, you guys anything. I'm there to help the investigate, whether it's what I'm feeling in a particular space or whatever it is. It's a team effort, right? Nobody's looking to be a star here. You're all working together to kind of put the puzzle together. And it shouldn't be about, it's not about us. It's about them. It's about the space. It's about the family, what they're going through. And I think if you are in a group that doesn't have that mindset, it makes things much more difficult. Where, I mean, you have to be altruistic when you go in and do this stuff. In my opinion, I mean,
Well, here's and what bothers me, and okay, we're going to be honest. We'll be honest here.
Go there.
If a psychic goes in a house and they get 30, 45 minutes, an hour, every room, take as much time as you want, and we're documenting that. When that is done, and we take into account the things that you have told us, when I'm doing my EVP session, and I say, are you with us right now? Can you see or hear us? And immediately it's like, yeah, they're right over there in the corner. It's just kind of like,
it's like that. You're interrupting the process now. Yeah.
Are we going to do this now?
Right.
So this is why I say my conditions, and I know this sounds like I'm taking away people's First Amendment rights, but after you've had your time, unless there's an axe falling out of heaven and it's going to hit one of us, give us a chance. And if I need something from you, I will ask.
Yep.
Okay, we'll finish. And before we leave that session, I will turn to you and say, okay, we're done. What do you got? You got anything for me? Unless it's something that's really like, oh my God, I need to say this, So this is what I mean about working together. You leave egos there, but you respect each other's methods. I have a question for Carrie, if you don't mind.
Have at it. I'm going to turn the space heater on. I am freezing. I'll be right back.
Okay. We'll watch Bernie for you while you're gone. Carrie, you can weigh in and chat on this. Is there an advantage to a psychic going into a place in low light or no light? We talk about it all the time. There are good reasons to be in the dark sometimes, and other times it just doesn't matter at all. It's just a trope for television and movies. Ooh, it's dark. But in terms of sensitivity, is it an advantage, disadvantage, or does it not matter at all for a psychic to do what they do in the dark? I'm just talking about investigations now. Obviously, if you're giving somebody a reading, you don't shut the lights off, But is that an advantage somehow? And I'll ask you the same thing, Aaron. I know you haven't been on a million investigations, but
for me, it doesn't seem to matter lights on, lights off, because again, for me, I'm tapping into what my body's telling me. I mean, you were at the museum with us when I was picking all that crazy stuff up there, and it took me a minute. I mean, I couldn't walk the space without stumping. There was that certain spot where that glass jar was. I couldn't stop coughing. I said to Satori, I'm like, fire, I think Carrie and I, yeah. I would agree with her. They talk to me energetically. She gets it physically, but I don't think it matters the light on or off. That's what it does not matter.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know if there was a physiological thing where senses are heightened, because that's how a lot of people justify, investigating in the dark. If you can't see, your ears, your hearing is magnified. And I think it kind of takes years to do that. Any blind person will tell you that they don't automatically become Spider-Man, where you can hear and sense things. This is like an evolutionary process. It's not hit the lights. Oh, I can hear better. Turn
the lights off. Now I'm a bat. Yeah. Well, and I think that's where I'm at. I think because I think it's something where you're constant, especially for somebody like me who didn't figure this shit out for myself till a couple of years ago, constantly learning and constantly growing, constantly trying to, learn about what you can and can't do, what you can and can't pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. I can understand that ideology. The senses are heightened when one's taken away, but generally it truly does not matter. That's been
No.
my experience as well.
Right.
Because I know for somebody like me, like I've had these weird experiences a lot of my life, but I didn't really tie it together until I hit 40. So to me, because I pick up shit at Target. I mean, and what shopping? Like I was fine 5 minutes ago, and now somebody had a bad day and they're pissed off. Now I'm pissed off. Like that doesn't matter, dark, light, day, night. It's just, am I able to recognize it when it happens? So I think some of it is trial by fire. You don't know till it happens. I don't know if Carrie would agree with that, but for me, it's like, oh well, shit.
What's the worst psychic ability to have? What is the worst psychic ability to have? I'm trying to, come up with a different word for worse. What is the most difficult?
For me,
difficult. What is that ability that?
I think like seeing people in their death state. Like Michelle will tell you,
Like I don't want to see like, oh, you're gonna die, and
I've got a friend who can smell death. I don't know if she's in here. Sometimes she watches our show, but she will smell it on people. But Michelle, I know she'll say I get love notes because I don't get, but she always sees people in their death state. I think that would suck because that would scare me to death. So maybe it's different for everybody. I don't know. For me, I like that I pick up things, but I don't like feeling somebody getting stabbed. I don't like the pain, feeling the pain of somebody's death. But that's just me personally. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the answer is different for everyone.
Yeah, I don't.
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, being clairvoyant, like if there's one that is more difficult to manage or navigate or something like that, it's one thing. It's one thing I see and can speak to dead people. Okay. And it's a whole other thing when, you get all this stuff with the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just not good news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think that would be my thing.
No.
I'd be carrying a hell of a burden around with me, because
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
I wouldn't want to know the future. I mean, I know like some of us will get, I don't like the physicality of my abilities. I don't like having the pain in my head if somebody has a brain tumor. I don't like the seizing my chest and one died of a heart attack. Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say she's using speech to text because she does this. Yeah, I would agree.
I was scrolling back. Who the hell is Aaron? Aaron, subscribe to our channel. We haven't seen you in here yet.
Person. Too bad she's on the screen right now. But I think it's different because I've had that conversation with different people with different abilities, and I think it probably varies from person to person. I wouldn't want the precognition type stuff either. I don't want to know the future. Like that's a lot of weight to carry. Like to know whether it's painkillers are taking it. Good for you, girl, as they should. Don't go up the stairs tonight. Sleep on the couch. I think because I think if you've got one ability, you have several. You've just got more of a dominant ability. I think, you start getting into the different clairs, all those different things. I think if you've got one, you've got several, but you've obviously got more of a dominant ability. My two, one I love, the second one I hate. The second one is the physicality of it. And God, I hate that word because I say it in football all the freaking time, but that's what it is. But I think it's different for everyone, depending on what their ability is. But I would not want to know the future.
Let's keep it real here. How about people who claim they're clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, clairdanes, they psychometrists, psychic medium, like one stop all. You know, I mean, there are people that claim they have every ability known to man.
Well, I think
And probably some we've never heard of. And I am always skeptical of that, maybe unfairly. So if I am unfairly skeptical of that, then I would like somebody to just tell me I need to, like, you know, just kind of grow up a little bit, or however you want to put it to me. But
I mean, I just because I'm on the screen right now, let's use me as an example. My very dominant two are the claircognizance, so I just get information that pops into my head randomly. That's probably my biggest one next to the clairsentience. So those are my two big ones, right? Those are the two that tend to pop up most often. But I do sometimes see things. I do sometimes hear things. I sometimes taste things or smell things. But do I rely on those? No, because they're not consistent. So I would never say like, oh, yep, I can see them, smell them, taste them, touch them all at the same. I know what my lane is. I know what my two strongest clairs are, and sometimes the others will pop in, but I don't get hit with them all at one time. I do think there are a lot of us who have several of them. You just tend to have a more dominant one or two. So, but I'd be leery of myself if I was going around saying, I think George agreed. You're being totally fair. Yeah. I think it depends on how it's portrayed. I think it's, like if I were to sit there and go, yep, I do readings now. I can talk to them. I can tell you what they smell like. I can that would be horseshit. I can't. I'm not going to, be a person who claims to know it all, tap into it all. But do I have a little bit of a lot of them? Yes. I don't think that is that uncommon. I think it's how are you using it? How are you portraying it? Because if I were to sit here and say, yep, I got all the clairs, I can do all of them equally, they are all dominant. That's bullshit. It's not true. For me. Can't speak to everybody else.
yeah. And again, it's one of the reasons that, you got to be very careful about bringing in psychics that, if I say, well, I'm a psychologist, a parapsychologist, a paranormal investigator,
right.
nuclear physicist, and all, of course, you could prove that I'm not easily enough. You can't prove anything that someone who claims they have psychic ability says. So therefore, you're at a disadvantage, especially when you're doing someone's home where there might be kids involved. I got to do everything in my power to try to prove out what I say. And if I can't, I also have to be honest about that. And I also have to be honest that what I say is not the final word.
Yeah.
I can just tell you what I documented, what I experienced, what my experience at other places might tell me about this.
Yeah.
That's the best I can do.
Right.
So it's difficult to go in and say you have this, and you have to do this, and this. And essentially you're saying, just take my word for it.
Agreed.
Just take my word for it.
Yeah. I also think too, I think Carrie says, I think that's probably true. I think there's a lot of us that have a number of different abilities. I have 9, but like she said, they're not all running 100% of the time. But I also think too, what may play into that as well is not all spirits are going to tap into a psychic or sensitive the same way and like to poke me in the back. Noah just like to show up in my house and I could see them. So I think it also depends on the spirit and how energetically are you tapped in. And every time something new starts happening, it's like, well, oh, no, we're doing this now. I think that's why, like the intro, because I know for me, when I started figuring this shit out, I was getting hit with it all. I was seeing things, I was hearing things. It was too much. At the same time, some abilities are not going to be as strong if you don't work them. They're just like a muscle. The more you use them, the more you figure out how they work, the stronger they get. So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a happy medium in your thought on it, but I also think it's like you said, how is that person presenting it? Like I mean, you know me well enough to know when I go into a space, I always rely on what my body tells me. That's usually my MO. You don't hear me saying, "Oh, yep, I could do one," list off 15 things. I rely on the ones that are the most common for me that present themselves the most. Do I occasionally get other things? Yep, sometimes. Sometimes.
Yeah, I would think that if you're asked to going into an investigation situation, that whatever is the dominant ability, whatever that is, will immediately take hold.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, if I'm saying, here, hold this jacket, as soon as you walk in, here, hold this jacket and tell me what you get.
Right.
I mean, you haven't even gotten a chance to acclimate yourself to anything yet, because we need to do that too. I mean, I can't this is why we do walkthroughs and stuff like that, right? Listen
Right.
to the building and
Yeah.
everything else. I think we have to get acclimated to the space first.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you get that by just diving in the deep end of the pool as soon as you walk in the door. Okay, get in there. You got 5 minutes. That's not going to work.
No.
You know?
George, validating through repeated and documented history to me doesn't merit ability, rather than providing proof of gift by compounding with immediate physical evidence, such as manifestation or manipulation. But I mean, I can see that, but I don't think that always works that way for us, depending on what's going on. I mean, I think, too, that also, again, I think that's intention. And I think, like Carrie says here, yeah, for sure, if I want an investigation, they're like, what's going to happen? I typically just am surprised as anybody else when one of my ability fires up. I think the same way. Like, I don't go into a location looking to validate anything for anyone. I'm like Carrie. Whoa, well, this is the thing that's happening now. I want to be helpful. I want to be part of it and contribute, but I'm not necessarily doing it to validate anything for anyone. Like, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone.
No,
I don't
you're
know.
right, because I think one of the things that we're absolutely stringent on is letting the spirit know that we did not come here for a show. We did not
Correct.
come here for you to entertain us.
Right.
Okay. If you want to, please,
Sure.
by all means, move chairs around or do whatever you want to do, whatever you're capable, whatever you're willing to do.
Right.
But for the most part, we're here for those two questions we talked about earlier. Who are you and what do you want?
Right. Because again, it's about them. It's not about us. I mean, if we can contribute something to the situation by what we pick up or feel, then great. But I think I know enough sensitives at this point who feel that same way. Like, you're not trying to. I mean, I'm not trying to make $1 million doing anything that I can do. I'm just here to learn more about it and how can I help this situation. Like, I'm not, I don't know. It's hard to explain. For me, it's not about me. It's about them. If I can bring something that's able to help them out, great. If I can't, I'm going to learn something anyway.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to step away for 1 second. I got to go out there.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion to have. And I think it's a constant learning experience, especially for somebody like me who's so new to the field, and things do pop up. I mean, I didn't know. I know, like, personally, if I'm watching an investigation or somebody is at a location, I can see them better when I'm watching it on a screen. If I'm there, I don't see very much. So I don't know. It's very interesting. It's an interesting experience, to say the least. Did anybody have any questions? I don't know if I start any. I don't think we had a lot of questions tonight. I know Jonathan had asked if I am enjoying Maine. Yes. I am so happy to not be hot and sweaty all the time. I love being able to walk 4 miles and not feel like I need to jump in the ocean when I'm done. So I know that was one question we had. And I like that we've had this conversation because I think last week was a very eye-opening experience for me. And Mary Beth, I think you're right. Willingness to learn is important. I think if you ever get to the point where you're like, yep, I've learned it all. I got it all figured out. It's time for you to exit stage left and try something new. I mean, if we had all the answers, what would we be doing? We would all need a different hobby. Look at this point. You know what I mean? And I do think the willingness to learn is very important. I mean, I'm like a sponge. I want to learn as much as I can. And that's part of the reason I moved to New England, to be closer to my people. And to learn more. I mean, I'll be able to go on investigations with, Corey and Jen, and with Rise Up, and, Cody and Satori, just so I can learn more about that end of it, because I think that's very important.
And I'm back.
The occasion where you perceived connection not bring you some aspect of elation. Yeah. My experience with Anne at first brought no elation. None whatsoever, especially when I got back to Florida and I was still dealing with it. So I think that does happen. I think when I've, had an experience where we recognized it was a hanging I was feeling, no elation there. It was nice to figure out why I couldn't stop coughing, but there wasn't any happiness in that.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of combining these two things. It's also the point of saying that psychics are not always right.
Mm-hmm.
We're certainly not always right.
Mm-mm.
So what you do is you're pooling your resources eventually to get to a point where whatever the question is,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's yours or whether someone has asked you to ask the question on their behalf, it's arriving at that answer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We don't all have that ability for instant.
Mm-mm.
I mean, we don't.
Mm-mm.
So it's what attracts me to it in the end is putting the puzzle together.
Yeah.
And in my own weird, wired brain.
Yep.
It's putting the puzzle together, getting all the pieces of the story.
I agree. And I think that's a good spot for us to almost kind of wrap up on, because at the end of the day, it's a team effort. If you're dealing with, whether you have a psychic on your team or not, you're still trying to solve and put the puzzle together as a team, or that should be your intention. And everybody gets to learn and grow from that experience. That's how that's how I look at this. Is I get the opportunity to continue to learn from some of the best in the business, and I am grateful for that. If I ever get to the point where I'm done learning, then I'm out.
Right.
So
right. We have to accept the limitations of what our capabilities are, because if we didn't, then we could sell all our equipment and all this would be done. Go surreal. We can talk to them whenever we want. They've got all sorts of things to say, but we have to deal with our limitations, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so admitting you have them. Limitations.
Right. So it's still a kind of a toss-up whether this field is about technology, science, spirituality, the metaphysical, and whatever else you want to, psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of those things have a foothold.
Yes.
In what it is we do. And the best part about it is in some aspects, we can bring them all together. Not that we're psychologists, not that we're physicists or anything like that, but we can certainly take some of the things that we learn from them and connect them into what we do.
Puzzle piece. Yeah.
It's just that mediums, spirit mediums, paranormal investigators are all we're all in the same tent.
Yeah.
Because all the rest of the people that I mentioned aren't really ready to jump on board with this.
Yeah.
unless it's to tell all of us that we're all full of crap.
Right.
Right?
And let's hope that's not true, because again, we're still going to need a new hobby.
Yeah. Because I think the easiest thing in the world, I don't know if I want to go there. I didn't come here to be controversial.
You do what you want, man. It's you
But
guys run this.
the easiest thing in the world is to tell you how something isn't possible or why
Right.
you can't do something. Anybody can do that.
Yep.
Anybody can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'll say about that.
Touche. We didn't have any questions in chat. I think we handled the few that we had. Do we have anything else?
Before we get around out of here, because I have an 8 o'clock, I got an MRI tomorrow. Nothing major. Just want a picture, before and after picture.
Fair enough.
Sunday, dead air.
Sunday.
Guess what, folks? It's game night again. You heard it here first. It is game night again. Our reigning champions, Cody and Satori, will be taking on a new team.
The new team. Are we dropping those names right now? I think we should.
A new challenger has come along. The Heinzens, Jen and Corey.
Yep.
The gauntlet is thrown down this Sunday from 8 to 10. Cody and Satori will defend their championship. Here it is. It says trophy. Is it stunt doubling? No, Carrie, there is apparently way too much pain involved. Way too much pain involved. I have a tough enough time sitting on this chair right now. That's no lie. Hey, rude.
I love it. It's going to be great.
So we're putting this together right now, and so that'll be this Sunday from 8 to 10.
I love it. And then Cody and Satori will be back next week.
Yes, they will. I will start throwing banners up there like I have a license for it. Cody and Satori will be back next week.
Woohoo!
Woo!
And then you had new Extremely Strange drop, yesterday?
Yeah, and it has done very well. But I'm not surprised with the subject matter, because all you twisted people out there love this stuff. But it is about the actual real story, the 1949 story of the case that inspired The Exorcist, with Ron. The young boy's name was actually, it's not Roland Doe, it's Ronald Hunkler. And this tells his story and what he and his family endured, what the priests endured. It gives you a little bit of alternative reasoning, like they always do, a couple of different sides of it to think about. But can I say I really enjoyed this one? I've watched it. I never, ever watched that show, and I've watched it twice. Nice. So it actually came out pretty good. So
you're getting some love
my
on
big
that
obsession,
too.
Mothman. It's like, all right, Share the Moth.
Love on that. See?
Paranormal Girl. Yeah, Paranormal Girl. Thank you. I think she weighed in on that and shared her own experience doing that type of thing in the comments section. And it was Paranormal Girl 5. So unless it's an imposter, I appreciate the comment. And thanks for always sharing your own experiences with us.
Yep.
And this is a place that you can always come, because we know some of you out there experience the same things or go through the same things, and we're here for you.
It's her. Same person.
Well,
Confirmed.
Thank you. I appreciate that greatly. So anyway, that's what's coming up Sunday, and we're going to put all the paranormal aside for another week, and we're going to have some fun.
I agree. We need it. It's been a week. So I thank you for letting me hash out my wild, abbreviated Ann Richardson story. We'll eventually have Carrie on to tell her end of it because it kind of starts with her with Noah. So, but I thought it tied in at least a little bit on how you handle it from a metaphysical perspective. So,
in 2 weeks, so Carrie's like, when are we back? After I came on here tonight, unfortunately, Carrie, the show's been canceled. I just got the word in.
that's it. Well, no, 2 weeks is Thanksgiving, the 28th.
In 2 weeks. In
Yeah.
2 weeks. Well, that was weird. And Carrie will be back to straighten this mess out. But, you know, and get better. Ice and
Yes.
elevate, because I know that this was one that Carrie would have loved to have been here because this is right in her wheelhouse. But she'll be back. And then maybe, you know, at some point you guys can address it next show. We do it again, whatever you want to do. Always happy.
And Jonathan Altieri has walking pneumonia. So let's send him some energy, Carrie some energy, and Angela for her PET scan tomorrow. We'll send all the good juju out tonight. And we'll see you guys next time.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.